In the meantime, make sure you have your notepad for all the notes because Alyssa's going to drop so many gems today. So I'm actually going to mute myself and turn it over to her so you can get all of the goodies. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you all for joining us. I know it's kind of like a weird time for some in the middle of the day, so appreciate you for joining in. My name is Alisa Reynoso Morris. Super excited to share my publishing journey. As you are settling in and coming in, please feel free to put in the chat your name, your favorite book, and what brought you to this workshop. And we're going to get into it. Definitely have a notebook with you or however you take notes, because I am going to be sharing a lot of information. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. If it's a question that I'm going to answer later on, I might not address it in the moment, but I do want to address as many of your questions as possible. I'm also going to share my contact information at the end, so that if you have any questions that I didn't get to address during this presentation, you can ask me then. All right. Perfect. All right. So Alyssa, a little bit about me. This is actually a picture of me from a school visit. One of my favorite things about being an author is actually being able to share my first book, Plátanos Are Love, with the kiddos. They get so excited to see food that they eat like on a regular basis in a book. They always get really excited when they see the abuela. I can't tell you how many DMs I get about abuelas, and people are like, oh my gosh, that's my abuela. And I'm like, yes. It makes me really, really excited and happy to see kids and adults alike represented and feel empowered in the stories that I write. And growing up, I was always listening to my abuela's stories. She always had a story for like everything. And I think we're all kind of like natural born storytellers growing up with our abuelas, but a lot of this information of how to actually get published has historically not been accessible to our community. So to be able to share my experience and some like general insights is super exciting, because I don't believe in gatekeeping. So yeah, super excited to be here. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of the flow, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my books. We're going to do a mindset check, then talk more nitty gritty in terms of the path to publication. I'm going to share some mentorship programs. I highly, highly, highly endorse mentorship programs. We're going to talk about agents. And then I'm going to talk about some services that I offer and some special offerings, especially for you guys. And we're going to end with a meditation and Q&A. I'm just going to look at the chat real quick. Anyone have any questions about the flow? Thank you all for introducing yourselves. Yes, Love House on Mango Street, Santa Cisneros is the best. Love this. Ooh, published cookbooks and children's books. Okay. So you're all in this in the right space, I feel. This is exciting. All right. So Alyssa, I'm a wife and a mom, community organizer. I'm very proud to be queer, Dominican, and Puerto Rican. And growing up, I didn't see my culture on the page. I didn't see my identity, my family, and I wanted to change that. I always actually wanted to be an author. I wanted to be an author since I was 7 years old. I actually have the first book that I wrote when I was 7. I don't have it right here because it's in my big bin that I take when I do school visits, and I did a school visit yesterday that I didn't get to empty out. But the kids, like, whenever they see that book that I wrote, they're like, there's a lot of like oohs and ahs of like, wow, like you wanted to be an author since you were 7 and now you're getting to do the thing. And it's always really encouraging because growing up, my mom was like, you have to be a lawyer or a doctor. Like, those are your options. I'm sure many of you have probably experienced something similar. Being an author felt like something that only like old white men get to do. It wasn't something that I thought was accessible to our community, and to be able to bring and usher in the book Plátanos Are Love has just been amazing. I actually started it in 2018. That's when I originally wrote it, and then it took a long time for it to actually get published because I chose traditional publishing, but it was worth it, and I'll explain why, and I'll talk a little bit about the different paths of publication. But yeah, that's a little bit more about me. Plátanos Are Love is an intergenerational story about a little girl named Esme, and she learns about her culture, her history. She learns about the significance of plátanos, the resilience of her ancestors by cooking in the kitchen with her abuela and her little sister. And it came out this April. It is actually a bestseller, which is really cool to say, because when our books do well, that shows the publishing industry that our stories matter and that people care about the stories that we're writing, and that there is a market for our books, which in turn opens up more opportunities for more authors like us. So authors like Julia Alvarez and Sandra Cisneros and Meg Medina that came before us have demonstrated that there is a demand for our books, that people do care about books our community does read, and then it has enabled other authors like myself to be able to enter the industry. My second book, The Bronx Is My Home, it comes out this October, actually, and it's really a love letter to the Bronx and to kids in general, but especially from the Bronx, kids from the Bronx. It's really showing them that heroes come from the Bronx and that they can become whoever they want to become. Because growing up, the narrative of the Bronx was always very negative. It was always, the Bronx is bad and it's violent and it's this and it's that. And I wanted to change that narrative. It's the first book of its kind. And I'm really excited to be able to share that with the world as well. And now I get to stop talking about myself. And we're going to do a quick mindset check. But first, I just want to take a look at the chat, make sure I didn't have any questions in here that were dropped in. Cool. Okay, so for this mindset check, I'm going to read each one out loud and then give a minute between each one so that you can say it to yourself either out loud or in your brain, whatever you prefer. But I think it's always really important to go into this space because there is going to be a lot of information. Some of it might be a little overwhelming and daunting and all of those things. And I want to make sure that as we go into it, we are approaching all of this information with an open mind. So the first is be open to learning new things. The second is to find inspiration everywhere. That is actually a bit of advice that I got from Julia Alvarez. And it has stayed with me forever. Find inspiration everywhere. You have a story to tell. Tell the story of your heart. So I tell this to all of my students. You can learn how to edit. You can learn how to format it. You can learn all the grammatical stuff that you need to fix to do the line edits. But the number one, the most important thing is to tell the story that only you can tell in your unique voice. And that is what's going to sell. That's what's going to allow you to succeed in this industry. So all of you that are here, you have a story to tell. Tell the story of your heart. Number 4, you are enough. No matter what others say, you are a writer. Keep at it no matter what. And number 5 is show up for others in the community. We need to support each other. That's how we show the publishing industry that there is a market for our books. When we buy each other's books, when we review each other's books, when we request them at the library, that all shows the publishing industry that our community cares about literacy and that our community does read and that we care about our stories. All right, any questions about that mindset check? Yes, tell the story of your heart. I'm glad that resonated. Yes, I love Julia Alvarez. I actually got to meet her in person. It was amazing. They say like, don't meet your heroes. And I was super nervous to meet her, but she was literally like the most wonderful, gentle, kind person in the whole wide world. And I'm glad that I did get to meet her. All right, cool. So we're all in the same space here. So feel free to pop in the chat just so I know kind of where everyone is in their publishing journey. Let me know like where you're at. Are you reading? Are you writing? Researching? Maybe you've completed a first draft, the icky first draft. Maybe you've completed a final manuscript, or you're looking for an agent, you're looking for critique partners, you're looking for beta readers. Maybe you already have a publishing deal and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do now. You've already published, but maybe you're struggling to sell your book, or you have no idea where you are. All of the answers are valid. Just gonna pop in here just to see, because I cover all the things, but I want to know what areas maybe I should focus on a little bit more. Writing and reading. Have 2 more chapters left to go. Yes, Jasmina, you got this. Ooh, illustrating. And oh my gosh, yes, writing. Okay, so lots of writing, looking for an agent, Jessica. Okay, we talk about agenting, so stay here. Have a draft, writing, researching, reading, writing. Okay, I'm currently waiting to hear back on my revisions. Ooh, sending you all the good vibes. That's the most agonizing part. The waiting part is rough. Oh, I love that. Reading, writing, imagining, and researching. Okay, a lot of ideas, but okay. Yes, we're gonna cover all of this. Okay, good. Thank you all for sharing where you're at. This is helpful. Cool. I'm excited. All right, so the first thing, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the general path to publication, and then like my path. Before I was traditionally published, I had to do a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and a lot of revising. So to put it into perspective, Plátanos Are Love, which is currently out in the world, came out April 11th of this year. I started writing it in 2018, and it is 2023. So back in 2018, I started writing a first draft. I got it to a point where it didn't suck by 2019 with the help of amazing critique partners. And then I had to find an agent, which can take years for some. And then after that, go on submission to editors. It took 5 years is how long this tiny little book that could took. The Bronx Is My Home, which comes out in October, didn't take as long, but it's because I already had an agent and I had a working relationship with an editor already. But it's still, this one still took technically like 2.5 years, because for anyone that's in the interested in the picture book space, it takes time to edit it and to find the appropriate illustrator to illustrate it, and the formatting and all that jazz. So why do I share that? I share that because no matter where you are in your journey in the process, be patient with yourself. It takes a long time to get here. And now it feels a little surreal to have like my books on shelves at indies and Barnes and Nobles and doing events. with Barnes and Nobles and all these cool bookstores, but it took a long time to get here. So don't get impatient with yourself. No matter where you are in the journey, give yourself grace, be patient with yourself, give yourself time. Continue to read and write. My mentor told me before I started writing, she said, I need you to at least have read at least 100 current picture books. And so that was my first homework. My mentor, she was like, here's a list of some recommended reads. I need a list back, and I need to see the 100 books that you read. Because before we start writing, it's so important to do the research. And yes, how did you find your mentor? I'm going to talk about that, Clara. Thank you so much. And I have a whole list of mentorship programs that I'm going to recommend. So in terms of the first step, make sure that you're reading, no matter where you are in the journey. If you think you've read enough, you probably haven't, and you need to read some more. Okay. Then while you're writing and reading, continue to work on honing your craft. I'm going to share some resources. I'm going to share some books that you should be reading that talk specifically about the craft of writing. And once you at least have a first draft, start doing some research into the industry. Figure out which is the publishing process you want to go through. Do you want to self-publish? Do you want to traditionally publish? Do you want to go with a hybrid publisher? Because there's pros and cons to all of those. And then the last step is that you get published. Yay, woo, right? So that's the summary. So again, I know I said this before, but I'm going to say it again. You have to read, write, revise, lots of revising, lots of writing, lots of reading. Okay? Any questions about reading? All right. Lots of really good questions here coming in. I am going to address one in terms of Sandra's question. How did you collaborate with your illustrator? So this is going to depend on which path you take. If you traditionally publish, your editor is going to connect you with illustrators. You can have a list of illustrators you want to work with, and you present that to your editor. And then depending upon who's available will determine like which illustrator you work with. So that's for traditional publishing. If you go the path of self-publishing, you have to hire your own illustrator. And a lot of individuals that self-publish, they use like Instagram to find illustrators. That's also how editors find other illustrators. So it depends on which path you go. I had a list of the illustrators I wanted to work with. We put them in order. My editor reached out to them, and then I got paired with Maria, which I'm so glad that I did because she is incredibly talented. So I hope that answers that question. Clara, I promise I'm going to share the mentors later on. What if we embarked on the journey of writing a book in a niche where few others have ventured? That's a really good question. The main thing is to do your research. If you are writing a book, you have to have at least some comps. So you have to show that there's a market for your book. So hair loss bonita, like if you're trying to write a book about hair loss, you have to do the research to see like, this is how many people, kind of probably some of similar research that you've done for your own business. This is how many people suffer from hair loss. This is how many people are benefiting from my products. I believe that these people will also buy my book. So you have to do your research because that's all going to go in a query letter to an agent to basically show that there is a market for your book. We can talk about that a little bit more. Definitely email me, contact me through my website, because that's a very specific question that I can't go too in detail right now. But the most important thing is you have to show that there's a market for your book, whatever your idea is, no matter how obscure or not. Interested in writing a graphic novel? Yes. Okay, so for graphic novel, you can, if you are an author illustrator, you will have to kind of do a dummy book and show some of the illustrations. If you are just a writer, you would write it kind of like a script for like a film, and then you'd work with an editor to find an illustrator. So great question about graphic novel. I also recommend that you email me independently because I can't go too specific with graphic novels. What if you have an illustrator already and they've started working on your book, but you still want to get published? The editor agent route. That is harder to do, Jasmina. If you want to go the traditional publishing route and you already have an illustrator, basically you're putting the editor and the agent in a weird spot because they might really like your words and they might not like the illustrator's work, or the other way around. And basically when you go in on a joint venture, you're putting the editor in a weird spot because it's like, we're a package deal. You got to take both of us or none of us. So it's possible, but it's a lot harder. So not to discourage you, but contact me through my website at the very end, and we can talk more about that. Okay, so path to publication. So the number one thing that you need to do is to focus on your craft. To get published, your manuscript needs to be great. Point period. That it needs to be flawless, because publishing is a very competitive industry. Not to like be like cutthroat or anything, but just the reality is only 1% of submitted manuscripts get traditionally published. So of all of the manuscripts that are sent to editors, only 1% of those actually get published. And then out of that 1%, only 30% of those manuscripts are written by our community, written by BIPOC, LGBTQ+, disabled, neurodiverse individuals. Last year, only 6% of all like children's books, picture book, middle grade, YA, 6% were written by Latinos. This year went up to 10%. So it's hard. Being 10% of 1% is like, okay. So that's why your manuscript needs to be great. Good is not good enough. It needs to be like flawless. And in order to do that, in order to write a great book, you need to know more about craft, okay? And so I'll share some good tidbits about craft. My first piece of advice is join a critique group or create one. I created critique groups to get feedback on your manuscript, because it is very, very hard to critique your own work. You write something, and I do this. I write something and I'm like, ooh, this is good. And then I share it with someone and they're like, Alyssa, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. And so you need other people to read your work to make sure that it's clear, to make sure that it's hitting the way it's supposed to. And the only way to do that is with joining critique groups. Okay. That's the number one thing. If you're not in a critique group, you need to be in one. Okay. The second is the way that you stand out is by having a strong voice. You have to write the story from your heart. Everyone is currently like obsessed with Elizabeth Acevedo, justifiably so. She is a queen. You know why she stood out? Because no one was doing what she was doing. She had such a strong voice. The Poet X was unlike anything that was out in the industry. It stood out. The only way that you're going to stand out is by having a strong voice, by writing the story that only you can tell. Okay? So that's number 2. Number 3, educate yourself. there are organizations out there, and they are great sources. Like, they have so many resources. So for the kidlit individuals in this space, SCBWI is great. They're the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. You can find critique groups through them. They do workshops on a regular basis. There's the national SCBWI, and then there's a regional one. So you can tap into those resources. They have lists of how you can get an agent. So a lot of the information that I'm sharing now, they have workshops that talk about these same topics. Another great resource is the Highlights Foundation. The Highlights Foundation, they teach courses taught by authors, and they teach you about writing books with a strong voice. They teach you about formatting. They teach you about graphic novels. They teach you about illustrating. They teach you about picture book dummies. They talk about everything you can possibly think of. There's a highlights course for it. And they do offer scholarships. So they have the Highlights Foundation, they have in-person workshops, and they have virtual online workshops that you can also be a part of. And I don't work for Highlights Foundation, so this is not an endorsement. I've taken 2 of their classes and they were amazing. So that's why I share it. Another great resource is the Children's Book Academy. I'm an alumni of the Children's Book Academy. I learned so much about writing picture books, from the format to word count to conflict and how to write a satisfying resolution. And we had a whole course about onomatopoeia. Like, it goes in. So if you're trying to write picture books, middle grade YA, Children's Book Academy is a great resource as well. And so SCBWI, Highlights Foundation, the Children's Book Academy, those are organizations that basically, like, authors like myself are a part of them, and they lead workshops. There is usually a fee associated with them, however. So if you want to start, but you're a little strapped for cash, some books that I would recommend, which are a great place to start, is Writing Picture Books by Anne Whitford Paul. So that's specifically for picture books. But if you're trying to write a novel, Save the Cat by Jessica Brody is amazing, as well as Story Genius by Lisa Crone. So I have those here. I refer to them very, very often. They are covered in Post-it notes because the gems that are in these books is amazing. The books is how I started. I started reading books on craft, but then past a certain point, I felt like I needed a classroom setting with other people giving me feedback. And that's where SCBWI, the Highlights Foundation, and the Children's Book Academy came in really handy. Any questions about those specific resources? Yes, the slides will be shared at the end. Thoughts on posting it online. Can you give me a little bit more context of what you mean? What are your thoughts of posting it online? Yes, thank you for dropping that gem. Save the Cat is currently on sale on Kindle for $3.99. That is great. All right, let's see. How do you protect your idea? Okay, so how do you protect your idea when you are in a critique group? It's kind of like you're all sharing each other's manuscripts. So there's this like respect that it's like, I'm not going to steal your idea. You're not going to steal my idea. It's not 100% foolproof. But what I will say is I never had any issues with it because the individuals in the group that I was in were all individuals that were serious about this craft, and they were serious about helping each other and not stealing other people's ideas. If you want, you can maybe draft up a contract or something. I don't know. But part of it is also, how are you meeting these people? Are they just like random strangers that you're meeting, right? Like, if you're meeting them and they're part of like SCBWI or the Highlights Foundation or one of these organizations that I mentioned, they're all in it for the same reasons. And they have their manuscripts that they're working on. Would that be a good idea to include the market research, the need for more? Jessica, yes, great question. This is going to be in your query letter, which we will talk about. Yes, we have to represent. Let's write. Cool. Okay, cool. All right. So, ooh, Cindy, this is a good question. General question for you, but how did you stay consistent and dedicated over the years of writing on your manuscript? Did you set a schedule, keep a goal chart, etc.? Yes, all of the above. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Love this question. So again, 7-year-old Alyssa wanted to be an author. In the first book I wrote is called A Good Writer. In that book, I said, one day I will be a famous writer because writing is like magic. When I write books, I feel proud of myself. Literal, actual quotes from that book. So you can't see it, but my closet is full of journals. I was that kid that just was writing 24/7 all the time. And I still do. I will show you my desk, but I would be embarrassed. My desk is covered with paper. I'm very old school. So in order to be a good writer, that is why that first slide was that first slide. You need to read. You need to write. The other reason I share that I'm a mom is because my life is hectic. I have a job. I have a job as a program manager. I'm also an author. I'm a mom. I have way too many hats. So I have to schedule it in, even if it's just 5-10 minutes a day. And at the end of the year, it adds up. It really does. In order to be a good writer, you need to do it. You need to stick with it. So thank you for sharing that, asking that question. All right, cool. Here we go. All right. So you've done the original research. You have a manuscript. You've gone through, you've taken courses, you've shared it with critique partners, you have a good working draft. You feel pretty confident in that draft. Now you need to decide what is your path to publication, which is right for you. Are you going to traditionally publish? Are you going to self-publish? Are you going to utilize a hybrid publisher? I can lead a 3-hour seminar on just that question. So I'm just going to give you the nitty-gritty because we can talk about that all day, okay? So when I was deciding what path I wanted to take, my question to myself, and now my question to you is, what is your goal? My goal with my manuscript is I wanted it to be accessible at libraries and in schools. I grew up with a single mother. I was the oldest of 3. My mom was Dominican, and she came to this country not speaking any English. We taught ourselves English together. I grew up in the Bronx. We were poor. I didn't know I was poor until I knew I was poor, but we were poor. So I lived in the library. That's what we could afford. I had a library card and I could go to Paris. I had a library card and I was in Tanzania. I had a library card and I was on a spacecraft all the way to Mars, right? The library was saved me, really. And as a inner city kid that couldn't afford to do cool things, I went to the library to live life and to be exposed to things that weren't in our financial means. And so, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional there. For me, it was so important for my books to be accessible at the library and at schools. That was my goal because I was that kid that needed these books. And so for me, whatever book I write, I want it to be accessible in those places. And I kid you not, when I found out that the New York Public Library System ordered 30 copies of my book, I was sobbing. And to find out that it was available in the in the branches that I frequented as a kid, it was like, whew, okay, this was all worth it. If you self-publish, if you use a hybrid publisher, it's a little harder for your book to be acquired at libraries and schools, because self-published books that are that are self-published and go through hybrid publishers aren't vetted at the same level. Anyone could self-publish a book. The people that self-publish a book the right way, and I say this in quotes because I hate saying that, but when you can tell it's a good quality book, it's because they've incorporated other people into the process. They hired an editor. They self-published, but they hired an editor. Maybe they hired 2 editors. They hired a developmental editor to make sure that the story makes sense, that it aligns, there's a character arc, there's a plot arc, and then they hired a copy editor to go in for like the grammatical stuff. It's hard to do all of the things perfect by yourself, and that's what self-publishing requires. Self-publishing requires you to write it, to edit it, to hire either an illustrator if you're writing a picture book, or a cover artist if you're writing like a novel. And it requires you to be your marketing team. And to do all of those things really, really well by yourself is really, really hard. So sometimes you need to hire help. And if you decide to hire help, that's going to be an upfront cost that you have to pay for yourself. When you traditionally publish, you don't have that upfront cost. When I sold Plátanos Are Love, my publisher paid me for the words. They bought my words, and then they paid me in advance for my words. Then they hired an illustrator. They were responsible for the cost of production. They were responsible for the cost of distribution. But here's the big but with traditional publishing: you get less back. Most authors get 5% back per book. So I make about $1 a book that is sold. So that's the kind of like cost benefit analysis that you have to think about. I still decided to go the traditional route, even though I knew I wasn't making a lot of money per book, because my main objective was for it to be widely available in libraries and schools. And knowing that it's available in the New York Public Library system, the Chicago library system, literally it's all over the country. I had friends in Canada sending me pictures of my book in their library in Canada. That was my goal. So that's why I chose traditional publishing. I have many friends that chose self-publishing because for them, it was more important for the book to be out in the world sooner and for them to have more control over the process. They also had the initial funds to invest. So self-publishing was better for them. Hybrid publishers are newer. Basically, a hybrid publisher is you pay a certain amount of money. It's different for each hybrid publisher, and they help you and hold your hand through writing the book. The advantage of using a hybrid publisher is that you get an editor. You get a developmental editor, you get a copy editor. They guide you through the process to make sure that your book is more widely available. They help you find what your keywords are on Amazon to make sure that your book does well. A lot of hybrid publishers also have connections with Barnes and Nobles and Target. So you can actually get your book picked up if you work with the right hybrid publisher. So I know that was a lot of information. I know I was probably talking a little fast. It's because, like I said, I can lead an entire seminar on just that question. But the main thing that you need to ask yourself is, what is your goal in writing your book? And that'll help you figure out which path is better for you. I'm gonna take a peek at the questions, but I'm a little nervous. What is your goal? Yes, thank you, Natasha. Yes, hybrids are a newer option. So that's why a lot of people don't know about them, but it is a great option for a lot of people. It depends. How much does it cost to self-publish? It can be thousands, because depending upon what you're publishing, you're going to have to hire an illustrator at the very least if you're writing picture books. And then you're going to have the cost of distribution, the cost of production. It can be several thousands. My friend that self-published, she invested about $5,000 into self-publishing. But she did make her money back because she's getting more than like $1 a book. But yeah, it's hard. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Irma. I appreciate you. Did you lose your ownership with traditional? No. So if you look at inside the book, right here, it says Simon and Schuster, and then copyright under my name. So I still own the copyrights of the book. They're basically like renting to use the words to produce the work. So yes, the copyright is under me and the illustrations are under the illustrator. So we still own our work. All right, cool. So figure out what's the best path for you. If you're still trying to figure out what's your best path, definitely contact me. I'm going to share my contact information at the end. I do like a free 30-minute consultation where we can like talk out what's best for you. And then I have different packages where I work with different authors depending upon what it is that you need. I offer like manuscript critique and consultation. So definitely like hit me up. The other organizations, I kind of mentioned some of them, SCBWI, Highlights Foundation, they're great for craft, but they're also good to do research about the industry. They teach courses about this. They teach courses about the pros and cons of all the different avenues. So definitely look into those. The other one is the Authors Guild. The Authors Guild is more talking about the industry. They talk less about craft, but they talk about like how to market your book, how to talk to booksellers, how to get your book at Barnes and Nobles, how to get your book in schools, how to do author visits, all that fun jazz. So definitely look into the Authors Guild. Another great resource is Authors. They offer like paid critique services so that you can get advice on your manuscript, but also on the industry. So definitely if there's authors that you gravitate to, that you resonate with, that you love their work, visit their website. Find out on their website if they offer services, and then mentorship programs. So here it is. Take a screenshot, y'all. I mean, I'm going to email this to y'all, so it's fine. But if you want, take a screenshot. These are the mentorship programs that I strongly and highly recommend. There are more, but these are ones that get the Alyssa stamp of approval. I have been either directly involved with some of these or have had friends that have gone through them and highly recommend them. So PB Chat mentorship is specifically for picture book writers. I was selected to be a mentee, but then I got my literary agent, so I pulled out to reserve that spot for someone else. But I know many people that did that program and they love it. All of the other ones here are great. I was also a Las Musas mentor. My mentor is Dana Balba Higuera. If you don't know about Dana, I'm about to tell you about Dana. Dana wrote The Last Cuentista. It's a middle grade book. It won the Newbery Award, which is basically like the Grammys for authors. And she's amazing. She was my mentor. And I'm actually on the Las Musas like admissions committee. So definitely look into theirs. And then this year I'm serving as a mentor for the We Need Diverse Books mentorship program. I am going to be working with a mentee for a whole year next year. So from January to December of 2024, and I'm super excited. So all of these mentorship programs definitely are amazing. The last one here, this editor writer mentorship program, I actually run that program. I work for the nonprofit called The Word, a storytelling sanctuary. And what makes that mentorship program really unique from the others is that you actually get to work with an editor. Most mentorship programs, you work with an author like myself. But with the editor writer mentorship program, you actually work with an editor. So, and I run it, but I can't everything is anonymous. The way that you apply, I can't pull any strings or anything like that. But what I can say is, as the person that runs it, I highly endorse it. So mentorship programs are amazing. They are a great way to learn about the industry and also to get really good feedback on your manuscript to make it the best that it can be so that it stands out, so that you are able to write a great book. All right, any questions about that? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try to be involved. Checking my library ebook. Okay, here we go. Did your publisher set up the copyright for you, or did... Oh, so it's in your contract. Usually when you traditionally publish, it's a part of your contract that the book is going to be copyrighted under you. So you don't have to pay, but if you self-publish, then you should copyright it, and you do have to pay. So that's another upfront cost with self-publishing as well. But I didn't have to apply for copyright separately. It's like a part of like the package deal where my publisher took care of that part for me. You all right, Jasmine, I'm sending you good vibes for the writer to writer mentorship. How many rejections or mismatches with publishers? Yes, thank you, Christina, put me on blast. So the other reason I talk about publishing being really competitive is because the rejection is real. Wine and yoga were instrumental in maintaining my mental health. The other thing that was super important is having a great relationship with my agent. I told her, don't send me stuff. Put it all in a pretty little document. And on the day that I have the mental and emotional fortitude to read the rejections, I will open up the document that day. But today I'm having a great day and I'm very creative, so I don't want to see the rejection, right? So the rejections, I was rejected by 47 agents before my amazing agent said yes. Plátanos Are Love actually didn't get rejected that much. It actually did pretty well. I went on a small submission. We sent it to 7 editors. Out of the 7 editors, 3 of the 7 were interested and sent me something that's called an R&R, a revise and resubmit. So basically that's I really like it, but it needs some work. Here's some suggestions. So I did all 3 R&Rs and then ultimately ended up working with the amazing Alex at Simon & Schuster because her feedback really resonated with me the most. So this book itself didn't get rejected that much, but I'm currently on submission with my 4th book and it got rejected. It's been rejected 12 times. So even though you sell a book doesn't mean all of the rest of your books are like, tú sabes, like gonna get published. So it really depends. I think the reason why Plátanos Are Love wasn't rejected that much is because we did a lot of research into which editors we thought would be interested. It was my first book. And I think my agent was smart enough and I was like, I can't handle too much rejection right now after being rejected 47 times. So, we did some research and we put together a very, very good list of editors that we thought would be a good match. And we were right. So yeah, the rejection is real. Thank you. Yes, it is real. But make sure you have friends and you prioritize. Yes, the book again by my mentor, The Last Cuentista by Dana Balba Higuera. It doesn't have all its pretty stickers because I got the first edition, but it's gotten the Newbery and the Pure Belpre award. Highly recommend, especially if you like sci-fi. So any Harry Potter fans, here's a less racist version. Okay, did you have to get a lawyer to review your contract? No, I did not need to get a lawyer. That is what your agent is for. They get a commission on every book they sell. So it is in their best interest to make sure they get you a really good deal and a really good contract. And a lot of literary agents have like a contracts department in-house. So they review like their contracts together to make sure you're getting the best deal. My agent was relatively new at the time, but she was hungry, and we are like best of friends. Love her. She was working with the other agents like, hey, this is the offer. Is this a good offer? Should I ask for more? What about this? What about that? So that's what an agent does. So you don't have to hire a lawyer. But if you do, the Authors Guild, you get legal representation as a member of the Authors Guild at a very discounted rate. So something else to consider. Okay, I think I answered most of the questions. Again, if I miss your question, I am so sorry. There's been a lot of really good questions in here. Please, please, please contact me on my website at the end, and I will happily answer all of your questions. After that, for your next book, it's not necessarily the same publisher that publishes your next book or gets dibs, or it's more about your agent and more details. Good question, Valerie. So for this book, for Plátanos Are Love, in my contract, it is standard for the editor to want first dibs on the next manuscript. So Alex did have first dibs on my next manuscript, but a good agent would say like, oh, you have first dibs for 60 days. And if you don't like it, then we're free to share it widely. And that's what we did. I had another manuscript that I shared. It ended up not working out. So then we shared it more widely with other editors. And so my editor for my first book, Plátanos Are Love, is Simon & Schuster. My editor for my next book, that is currently available for pre-order, is Little Brown under Hachette. So both are published under Big Five publishers. Do you recommend we do marketing before the book comes out? Yes, you have to do marketing, but that's a whole conversation for another day, Lisa. We're not going to have too much time to talk about marketing here, but yes. The best piece of advice I would give you is to start building relationships with booksellers at least like a year before your book comes out. So I had a lot of relationships that I built with booksellers and with organizations before my book came out, so that as I was planning my book tour, they already knew me. They knew who Alyssa was. They were like, yes, girl, we would love to have you. And then that's how that happened. So yes, you have to start marketing and building those relationships before your book comes out. So for which mentorship programs can you apply for Illustrator? We Need Diverse Books offers mentorship programs for illustrators. And I think the Las Musas does as well. That's an excellent question. I wish I had more information, but I'm not an illustrator, so I'm sorry. But just honestly, like do like a Google search of like illustrator mentorship programs. But I definitely know We Need Diverse Books does mentorship programs for illustrators. And actually one of my friends is an illustrator mentor. So highly recommend you apply. The application for the We Need Diverse Books opens up August 15th until September 15th. So get it together now. Okay, where did you find bookseller contacts? Go to the store. So I would physically go to the store and introduce myself and say, hey, my name's Alyssa. I have a book coming out. Yay. And then, conversation. Okay, that's all the questions I can say for right now, because we're like approaching 4 minutes. I really, really want to talk about agents. So agents. The first is, why do you need an agent? The number one reason you need an agent is because most publishing houses will not even look at your manuscript if it's not agented. So Simon & Schuster, Hachette Book Group, if I sent them my manuscript directly, delete. It needed to come from an agent. Why? Because agents get about 100 emails a day with new queries. If that were to happen to editors, they would not be able to read all the submissions. So a lot of publishing houses use agents as like help with the vetting process and with the screening process so that they don't get bombarded with as many manuscripts. Because if agents get 100 manuscripts a day, agents would probably get 1,000 a day. So it acts as kind of like a filter. The problem is most agents are white. And there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens on the agenting end, where if an agent doesn't resonate with your work, it never gets in the hands of an editor, which is a big problem. So my best advice is to use tools like Query Tracker, also SCBWI, and even though Twitter's on fire right now, there are Twitter competitions where you can enter, and there are times where editors will like your pitch during these competitions, and that means you can submit it directly to the editor, even if you don't have an agent, which is what happened to me. I participated in DV Pit. I had like 6 editors that liked one of my pitches. And then I sent it directly to them. They liked it. They said, hey, we want to work with you. And I said, hey, great. I don't have an agent yet. And they're like, no problem. Go get yourself an agent. And then we'll pick this up from where we ended up. And then that's how I got my agent. I was like, hey, I have these editors, listed them by name, that are interested in this manuscript. Will you represent me? So after those 47 rejections, that helped me get to like the top of the agent pile. So yes, it's super important to have an agent because you can't submit to big publishers without them. And the other reason it's important to have an agent is because they help you negotiate your contract so that you get a good deal. It's a business. So the publisher is going to draft a contract that is best for them and not always best for you. So an agent will help you navigate that. And in order to get the attention of an agent, again, on average, agents get anywhere between 100 submissions a day, well, queries a day. You have to have a really polished manuscript. You have to have a really good and customized query letter, which probably begs the question, what is a query letter? A query letter is basically like a cover letter for your book, and it has your pitch and why they should represent you. And so on that note, we have come to almost the end of the presentation. Thank you all for bearing with me. I know, yes, I did a lot of research before I found my agent. I had a whole spreadsheet going on of all the agents that I was going to pitch to. So yes, you have to do a lot of research. Yes, DV Pit did change to Discord this year because Twitter is on fire. Yes. Oh, great question, Jessica. What is the standard rate for an agent? 0. You do not pay your agent until they sell your work. I'm going to say that one more time. You do not pay an agent until they sell your work. If an agent is saying, hey, I really like your manuscript, send it over to me. I would be happy to help you. It's going to cost you a nice whopping $500 for me to just take a look at it. They are a schmagent. They are a scam agent. Okay? Do not. But after you submit it to an agent, they sell your work, they typically get about 15% of your deal. So they get 15% of your advance, 15% of your royalties, which is why it's in the best interest of the agent to get you the best deal, because then they get a bigger commission. All right. So cool. Here are some services that I am offering to the We All Grow network. I offer query letter feedback. I usually charge $50 for that. You get 15% off. picture book manuscripts, I have 2 tiers of services for that. There's like a more like basic manuscript critique and then a more detailed one. For the more basic critique, it's $99. For the more thorough one, it's $200. You get 15% off both of those packages. And then I also do author development consultation, where I also talk about marketing strategies. Because like I said, Plátanos Are Love is a bestseller and it has almost 100 reviews on Amazon and it just came out. So it's done really well. And according to my publisher, they shipped out 6,000 copies in the first week, which is very good, especially for picture books these days. So I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I wanted to offer these services specifically to the We All Grow Network with these discounts because, like I said at the very beginning, you have a story to tell. And there's a lot of gatekeeping involved in this industry. And so it is my goal to be able to help you actualize your dream of publishing your book, if that is your goal. And the last thing I will say is if you subscribe to my website, you'll automatically get my teacher's guide and workbook. It's like a 30-page workbook with a bunch of fun activities that relate to Plátanos Are Love. So parents and teachers, you will love that. It also will send you the link of the read aloud, where I'm like, all like, I put my teacher's hat on and I read it like how, you know, I would read it to students. And I'm going to share this presentation as well. And the last thing is and I'm going to stop sharing. I am currently promoting my second book, The Bronx Is My Home. So I'm going to put the link in here to the giveaway that I'm doing. If anyone buys the book, then you automatically get entered into the giveaway. And the prizes are a free manuscript critique valued at $100, a 60-minute Ask Me Anything session valued at $200, or a book bundle of a signed copy of my book, Plátanos Are Love, and then 2 of my other friends' books. So I'm going to put the link to that giveaway in here in the chat so you all can have that. I'm also going to put a link to my website, to the contact page, so that if you have any questions, you can contact me right there. And then the link to my regular website that has all of the list of my services is there. So website, the giveaway. So The Bronx Is My Home comes out October 24th. I'm super excited. And so anyone who pre-orders the book, and pre-orders are super important because it shows the publisher like, hey, we are interested in this book. Let's print a higher print order, right? If your book doesn't do super well during pre-orders, then they might print a smaller order, and then it's a whole thing. It's behind the scenes stuff, but it's super, super important. So if this was helpful to you, please, please, please support me by pre-ordering The Bronx Is My Home. Order Plátanos Are Love. If you love plátanos, if you don't love plátanos, I don't think we could be friends, but you can still contact me. That's fine. We can still work together. And any books that you love, that you've read, that you're like, oh my God, this book is everything. It healed all my childhood trauma and wounds. Please review their book. Those reviews are super, super, super important to authors. They show the publishing industry that our books are important. And yeah, so yes, there are tostones in the book. Yes, there's tostones in the book. It's right here on the cover. We got the tostones. I'll give you a quick glimpse. Have the tostones there. Maria did an amazing job on the illustrations. Like, they are mouth-watering illustrations. Yes, and mango, there's mango in here too. Yes, we got the mango. So yes, thank you all for sticking with me. I know that was over the hour that we were allocated, but I just wanted to make sure that you all got a lot of information. If you are interested in any of my services, please contact me. If you just have general questions, please contact me. And yeah, that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Quick question. Is there a expiration date on your discounted services?
No expiration date.
Wonderful.
Good question.
I want to make sure how much time I have. So, thank
Until
you.
infinity.
Thank you so much. And we wish you all the success in your next books. And thank you for inspiring all of us. You're amazing.
Thank you. And this is recorded, so I know the We All Grow Network will post a link to the recording as well if you need to like rewatch any sections. Thank you all for joining me, spending time with me on Wednesday of all days, right? But we're here and I hope it was informative and I appreciate all of you and buena suerte. Muchos besos. Take care.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, amigas. Take care.